1 million shells in a single campaign. The words were typed in stark black ink across the Allied operational report. German officers read, reread, and leaned back in disbelief. Photographs, telegrams, and eyewitness accounts confirmed it. Yet the sheer magnitude seemed impossible. Explosions rolled across the valleys of Lorraine, smoke and fire rising like a living tide. The earth shuddered under relentless barrages, trees splintered roads, shattered villages trembling. Fact records confirmed timing trajectories and impact zones. Folklore whispered of a power beyond comprehension, a storm of steel raining down from disciplined hands. On the firing lines, soldiers moved with precision learned through weeks of training. Each cannon crew synchronized, loading, aiming, firing. Sparks leapt from breaches, shells screaming toward distant targets. Diaries later recalled the smell of gunpowder, the vibration of earth through boots, the deafening roar as salvo after salvo pounded enemy positions. It was both mechanized execution and human endurance intertwined. Reports intercepted by Axis intelligence spoke of near miraculous efficiency. The guns never cease. The sky rains destruction. They move as one, a telegram read. Disbelief spread through command posts. How could a finite number of guns produce such relentless firepower? Yet the evidence, the logs, and the aftermath bore witness. Fact and folklore, intertwined numbers, verified legend, magnified. Even amid destruction, human moments persisted. Soldiers whispered encouragement, adjusted misaligned cannons, and rotated shifts without faltering. Anecdotes tell of gunners working through smoke and sparks with supernatural focus. One man reportedly corrected a misfire mid-salvo, preserving dozens of shells' accuracy. Each act became part of the oral history, a layer of folklore over the fact layer, enhancing the sense of awe. Smoke and dust thickened the horizon, obscuring the battlefield, yet amplifying its drama. The roar of artillery echoed from valley to valley. Soldiers and officers alike recognized the rhythm, methodical, relentless, almost inhuman. Fact layer recorded intervals, calibers, shell counts, and damage. Folklore layer captured the perception of omnipresent power, the terror and amazement of those who witnessed it. By afternoon, the scale of bombardment was staggering. German positions crumbled under precise and sustained fire. Reports described forests, obliterated roads, impassable artillery emplacements destroyed. Axis intelligence could scarcely reconcile these observations with their calculations. They marveled, they feared, they documented in disbelief. The artillery's human operators moved in disciplined harmony, turning chaos into orchestrated destruction. As dusk approached, the earth still quivered. 1 million shells had been fired, leaving a battlefield transformed. Fact documented the output trajectories and logistics. Folklore preserved the shock, awe, and enduring legend. In those hours, the artillery line became not just a weapon, but a symbol, a testament to precision, coordination, and human resolve. Lorraine, 1944. The rolling hills and dense forests of northeastern France seemed calm at first glance. Yet beneath this serene landscape, the rumble of artillery had begun to shape the course of battle. Allied forces had amassed unprecedented firepower. Hundreds of cannons, howitzers, and mortars positioned strategically across ridges, valleys, and hidden defiles. The air smelled of wet earth smoke and the faint, acrid scent of gunpowder. Every officer, every soldier understood that the battle ahead would be measured in shells and devastation, precision, and endurance. The German defensive lines stretched across the region, fortified with bunkers, trenches, and machine gun nests. Officers moved nervously along positions, counting men, calculating artillery ranges, consulting maps with sweat-dampened fingers. Each shell fired by the Allies could obliterate entire positions. Intelligence reports filtered through the ranks describing the sheer volume of fire expected. Yet numbers alone did not capture the reality. Whispers spread 1 million shells. An unimaginable figure, a tidal wave of destruction that seemed to defy the limits of human and mechanical endurance. Allied soldiers, gunners, and engineers prepared meticulously. Cannons were positioned at precise intervals, calibrated for range angle and elevation. Ammunition stockpiles were arranged for rapid deployment, supply trucks moving in coordinated waves to ensure continuous firing. Diaries from the time record the painstaking attention to detail, every shell accounted for, every fuse inspected, every gun tested. The synchronization of men, machines, and logistics created a rhythm that would dominate the battlefield. Weather played a crucial role. Fog rolled over the valleys in the early morning, dampening the smell of gunpowder, but reducing visibility for the defenders. Clouds of smoke and dust would later mingle with the natural mist, creating a chaotic, surreal landscape. Soldiers had to adjust aim timing and communication, relying on signal flags, runners, and field radios. Yet, even amid uncertainty, the Allied artillery system maintained its relentless cadence. Fact Layer documented firing intervals, shell trajectories, and impact accuracy, while Folklore Layer preserved the awe of those who witnessed this orchestrated destruction. The human element was central. Gunners and crews rotated shifts, yet the pace remained unbroken. Men and women alike moved with practiced precision, loading, aiming, firing, adjusting. The physical strain was immense, yet diaries describe a sense of focus, almost meditative rhythm. Supervisors monitored each crew, correcting misfires, maintaining timing, and ensuring that the relentless wave of artillery continued. Every individual action contributed to a larger, almost mythic system. German observers could scarcely comprehend the scale. Reports described trenches disappearing beneath the barrage forests, shattered roads, cratered. Officers calculated defensive capabilities, but reality outpaced expectations. Intercepted communications relayed disbelief. They fire without pause. They have turned the hills into a furnace. Every position is under relentless assault, the language of awe, fear, and incredulity blending together. Fact and folklore converged. The artillery existed as both a precise instrument of war and a near-mythical force. Every piece of artillery was a system in itself. Crews followed exact sequences, loading shells, adjusting angles, signaling for fire, observing impacts, and preparing the next round. Engineers ensured that equipment functioned under stress. Maintenance crews repaired misfires, and logistics teams supplied ammunition without delay. Even a small miscalculation could halt the system. Yet redundancy, skill, and coordination ensured continuity. Diaries describe moments where human ingenuity averted potential delays, improvising solutions under extreme pressure. The terrain of Lorraine imposed additional challenges. Hills obstructed lines of sight, forests concealed enemy positions, and the undulating ground affected trajectories. Yet the Allied artillery system adapted calculations, adjustments, and repeated tests maintained accuracy and volume. Fact Layer meticulously recorded distances, angles, shell counts, and outcomes. Folklore Layer preserved the perception of unstoppable, almost supernatural efficiency. The idea that the Earth itself was trembling under the onslaught. Communication lines were vital. Signalers ran between batteries, radios crackled with coordinates, and officers transmitted adjustments in real time. The human and mechanical networks intertwined, ensuring that firepower was distributed evenly, timing synchronized, and targets neutralized. Folklore Layer tells of messages sent under fire runners dodging enemy fire and the invisible choreography that made 1 million shells possible. The combination of data, human skill, and coordination became legendary. By mid-afternoon, the battlefield itself had transformed. Clouds of smoke, dust, and flying debris obscured positions, masking movements, and creating chaos for the defenders. German troops noted the relentless pattern, the unbroken cadence of fire. Fact layer verified the intervals, counts, and effects. Folklore layer amplified the story. Soldiers described a sound like the sky itself, cracking a thunder that seemed endless, a power they could scarcely comprehend. Even small acts shaped the outcome. A gunner correcting a misalignment, a crew anticipating the next shell, a logistics team improvising when supply routes became congested. These actions maintained the flow of destruction, ensuring both precision and volume. Diaries and oral histories preserved the human drama behind the numbers, the focused determination and ingenuity required to sustain a campaign of this magnitude. As evening approached, the rolling hills of Lorraine bore the marks of relentless artillery. Trees splintered, roads cratered, and fortifications shattered. Yet the system continued disciplined and unwavering. Fact layer captured every trajectory, every shell, every impact. Folklore layer preserved the awe, the narrative of a relentless, coordinated, and almost superhuman artillery barrage that stunned both sides. The context was set: a battlefield reshaped, a human system executing near mythical efficiency, and an enemy forced to reckon with the unimaginable. The numbers themselves were staggering. Fact records later confirmed that over the course of the campaign, Allied artillery units fired more than 1 million shells across Lorraine. The scale of operation required meticulous planning, precise timing, and human endurance beyond ordinary expectation. Each cannon crew coordinated with adjacent batteries, calculating trajectory, angle, and timing down to the second. Shells were loaded, fuses set, and targets verified in a continuous flow of motion. The rhythm of war became almost musical, mechanical precision, guided by human judgment. The artillery system was a network of synchronized complexity. Cannons, howitzers, and mortars were positioned across ridges, valleys, and concealed positions. Engineers oversaw calibration, ensuring range, angle, and powder charges were exact. Logistics teams moved ammunition from depots to batteries, timing deliveries to match firing schedules. Even small delays could disrupt cadence. Yet the system adapted, crews improvised, supply routes shifted, and the rhythm never faltered. Fact layer documented each shell, fired, the rate of fire, and the intervals maintained with astounding consistency. Crew rotation and human stamina were essential. Soldiers worked in shifts, each team trained to maintain output while avoiding fatigue-induced errors. Diaries and letters recount the physical strain, the noise, the vibrations that rippled through the ground with every salvo. Yet the focus never waned. Gunners adjusted for wind, weather, and terrain. Loaders coordinated with precision. The human element ensured that each shell not only fired, but hit its intended target with maximum effect. Folklore layer preserved awe, the perception that the artillery seemed inexhaustible, as if the guns themselves were alive and relentless. Every battery operated as part of a larger system. Observation posts relayed corrections, forward spotters provided real-time targeting adjustments, and command units synchronized timing across miles of battlefield. The combination of human and mechanical precision enabled firepower at a scale unimaginable. Fact layer recorded trajectories, elevations, and impact data. Folklore layer captured stories of soldiers who felt the earth itself trembling under the relentless barrage. The logistical feat was immense. Millions of shells had to be manufactured, transported, stored, and delivered. Supply trucks, rail cars, and depots coordinated movement with military precision. Ammunition was inspected meticulously. Any defect could compromise accuracy or safety. Yet reports recount moments when improvisation saved operations crews, devising temporary solutions to misfires, rerouting supplies, and maintaining the unbroken rhythm of fire. Folklore layer highlighted these acts as near miraculous human ingenuity, complementing industrial might. The rate of fire was extraordinary. Some batteries fired dozens of rounds per hour, maintaining continuous pressure on German defenses. Each salvo calculated, overlapping, and coordinated. The sheer volume of shells created a psychological and physical effect far beyond mere destruction. German officers later described disbelief. The earth itself seemed to shudder, the sky torn by smoke and fire, the pattern of bombardment relentless. Fact verified the figures. Folklore amplified the horror and awe. Environmental conditions shaped operations. Fog, rain, and smoke altered visibility, forcing crews to adjust timing, aim, and coordination. Diaries recounted the challenge of maintaining precision under adverse conditions. Yet, adaptation prevailed. Engineers recalibrated crews, signaled silently, and forward observers provided real-time corrections. The interplay between natural elements, human skill, and mechanical accuracy defined the effectiveness of the million-shell campaign. The human stories within the system were equally compelling. Soldiers recounted moments of exhaustion, yet they maintained discipline. One crew reportedly completed an uninterrupted series of firings for hours, rotating seamlessly with adjacent teams. Another diary described a misfire corrected just in time, preserving the accuracy of dozens of shells. These small acts preserved in folklore reveal the human ingenuity sustaining the colossal fact layer of artillery output. By the height of the campaign, the coordination was almost uncanny. Cannons fired in precise intervals, creating overlapping fields of destruction. Infantry and armored units advanced behind the curtain of shells, supported by engineers who maintained roads, bridges, and communications. Fact layer captured the metrics: total rounds fired, damage assessments, logistical throughput, while folklore layer conveyed awe, disbelief, and the perception of an unstoppable, near-superhuman artillery operation. Even as dusk approached, the echo of impacts rolled across Lorraine. Smoke hung low over the shattered landscape, craters marked the ground, and yet the artillery continued relentless. Soldiers, fatigued but resolute, maintained rhythm, each action contributing to the precision of the next. The human system, mechanical system, and battlefield environment merged into one coherent force. Fact documented the effectiveness. Folklore immortalized the spectacle. In the end, the artillery campaign became a benchmark of industrialized warfare. 1 million shells had reshaped terrain, shattered defenses, and left both allies and enemies in awe. Fact layer verified the firepower, coordination, and accuracy. Folklore layer captured the human courage, adaptability, and the almost mythical rhythm of destruction. Together they preserved a story of power, precision, and human will harnessed to the machinery of war. Amid the smoke and chaos of Lorraine, the human stories behind the artillery unfolded. Soldiers, young and old, manned the guns with a mix of determination and apprehension. Diaries and letters recount the heat of the day, the reverberations through the earth, and the deafening roar of repeated salvos. Each shell fired required precise coordination, teamwork, and endurance beyond the ordinary. Yet within this mechanical ballet, moments of humanity shone through. One crew recalled a misfire that could have halted the operation. A young gunner, hands trembling, adjusted the shell and timing, just in time, allowing the salvo to continue without pause. Cheers and nods followed, brief but meaningful acknowledgments of skill and courage. Another account described a team rotating seamlessly to maintain the relentless rhythm of fire, each member anticipating the next movement as if instinct guided them. Fact layer recorded the efficiency and speed. Folklore layer captured the almost supernatural coordination and morale. The German perspective added to the legend. Officers documented the barrage with incredulity. Trenches obliterated forests, shattered roads, cratered. The perception of unending firepower became part of their narrative of fear and awe. Intercepted communications described the artillery as relentless, inexhaustible, and terrifying, words that blurred the line between reality and legend. The human element, meticulous and disciplined, was amplified in enemy accounts into something near mythical. Amid the destruction, small acts of solidarity emerged. Soldiers helped each other lift shells, signaled corrections silently, and shared encouragement amidst smoke and debris. Diaries recall moments of quiet humor, a whispered joke amidst the thunder, a brief glance exchanged between exhausted crew members that reinforced focus and resolve. These gestures, though minor in isolation, were crucial in sustaining the relentless pace. Folklore layer preserved these acts, transforming mundane survival into narrative heroism. Forward observers added another human dimension. Perched on ridges or behind foliage, they adjusted aim, communicated corrections, and witnessed the devastation below. Letters described the surreal landscape fields, transformed into craters, trees splintered, smoke rising in spirals. The human mind struggled to reconcile precision with chaos. Yet the observers' coordination ensured each shell contributed to the larger strategy. Fact layer documented their reports. Folklore layer elevated their experiences into legend tales of eyes seeing the impossible and hands guiding destruction. Even in the fatigue, there were moments of awe. Soldiers recalled watching the simultaneous firing of multiple batteries, the overlapping thunder creating a rhythm that seemed alive. Sparks from cannon breaches lit faces smeared with soot smoke drifting across their focused expressions. One diary noted, "It was as if the earth itself was dancing under our hands," a poetic merging of human effort and battlefield impact. Fact layer recorded timing shell counts and trajectories, while folklore layer preserved the visceral perception of power and coordination. Letters from home interwove with reports. Families wrote of the bravery and endurance required, unaware of the technical precision involved, but sensing the gravity of the effort. Soldiers' replies reflected pride, responsibility, and camaraderie. These personal narratives became part of folklore, a layer of human experience that gave depth to the staggering fact layer of numbers and logistics. Even minor improvisations contributed to the legend. When a shell jammed or a gun misaligned, soldiers improvised solutions under pressure, maintaining the unbroken rhythm. Diaries describe whispered instructions, split-second decisions, and coordinated teamwork that kept the million-shell barrage unrelenting. Folklore layer amplified these moments into almost superhuman feats, yet fact layer confirmed that each adjustment, each correction, each hand movement contributed directly to accuracy and efficiency. By late afternoon, the battlefield had become a theater of human endurance. Shells had reduced fortifications to rubble forests, to splintered trunks, and German positions to chaos. Yet within the controlled system of artillery, each human action, adjusting aim, rotating crews, coordinating logistics, was part of an orchestrated whole. Soldiers experienced exhaustion and exhilaration, simultaneously understanding their labor's impact not only on immediate targets, but on the broader campaign. As evening approached, observers recorded the aftermath. 1,000,000 shells had rained down, and the human stories of courage, ingenuity, perseverance, and coordination remained etched in memory. Fact layer quantified destruction effectiveness and timing. Folklore layer preserved awe, fear, and admiration. Together, they narrated a human experience that transformed raw numbers into legend. And so the human scene of Lorraine became a tale of extraordinary collaboration under fire. Precision, courage, and adaptability merged to create both fact and myth. The artillery crews, forward observers, and support teams. Each small action, each gesture, each decision wove into a narrative that would echo far beyond the battlefield, illustrating the immense power of human skill harnessed to machinery, shaping both history and legend. The artillery campaign in Lorraine was not just a matter of manpower or firepower. It was a symphony of systems, a choreography of coordination that transformed chaos into controlled devastation. Every battery, every cannon, every shell was part of a meticulously planned network. Forward observers relayed coordinates, signalers transmitted adjustments, supply trucks and rail cars moved ammunition with military precision. The human and mechanical elements intertwined seamlessly. Observation posts perched on ridges and hills scanned the battlefield continuously. Spotters adjusted firing angles, calculated trajectories, and corrected for wind elevation and target movement. Runners and radios ensured that every piece of information flowed instantly from observer to battery to command post. Any disruption could cause misfires or delays, yet redundancies and improvisation ensured continuity. Fact Layer documented communication protocols, firing intervals, and logistical throughput, while Folklore Layer preserved awe, the sense that the system was almost alive, anticipating every movement. Each battery operated as a semi-autonomous unit, yet synchronized with neighboring guns. The rotation of crews, the sequencing of shells, and the timing of salvos created overlapping fields of fire. Engineers and supervisors monitored the tempo, constantly adjusting sequences to maintain relentless pressure on German positions. Diaries recount the precision required. One mistimed round could compromise effectiveness, but the system's robustness allowed human and mechanical error to be absorbed and corrected almost instantaneously. The logistical network supporting the artillery was immense. Millions of shells had to be manufactured, transported, stored, and delivered on schedule. Depots, trucks, and rail cars moved continuously, delivering ammunition to precise locations. Supply officers tracked every round, every battery, every route. Yet despite the meticulous planning, Folklore Layer preserves stories of improvisation crews devising makeshift solutions. When transport was delayed, soldiers manually moving shells to maintain the rhythm. The interplay of rigid structure and human ingenuity defined the system. Maintenance crews worked tirelessly. Artillery pieces were inspected, repaired, and recalibrated to handle the volume and intensity of continuous fire. Diaries recall sparks flying as a misaligned cannon was corrected mid-salvo, or a lubrication issue fixed under duress. These small interventions ensured that the broader system remained operational. Fact Layer recorded failures, repairs, and efficiency, while Folklore Layer transformed these into narratives of skill and heroism. Timing and coordination were critical. Every cannon's interval, every salvo, every trajectory was calculated to maximize overlap and saturation. Radar maps and observation reports guided decisions, yet human judgment remained central. Soldiers adapted to shifting conditions, adjusted for terrain or weather, and maintained precise rhythms. The system's success depended on both disciplined procedure and human responsiveness. Even environmental factors were integrated into the system. Fog, rain, and smoke altered visibility and trajectories. Engineers recalculated angles, crews adjusted fire, and forward observers provided real-time feedback. The battlefield itself became part of the operational system, a dynamic variable, accounted for through human skill and mechanical precision. Diaries describe the surreal effect, the earth-shaking forests obscured by smoke, yet every salvo landing accurately, a testament to both planning and adaptation. Coordination extended to strategic communication. Headquarters monitored the cumulative effect of fire, adjusting priorities, target sequences, and supply allocation. Every action, from the smallest adjustment of a cannon to the allocation of shells across multiple batteries, was synchronized within a broader operational framework. Fact Layer captured the mechanics, the logistics, and the effectiveness. Folklore Layer preserved the human perception of awe, the sense that a near-infinite machine of destruction was controlled by disciplined, tireless humans. By mid-campaign, the rhythm was near-perfect. Salvos maintained continuous pressure, overlapping impacts, creating waves of destruction. Batteries rotated crews, repaired equipment on the fly, and coordinated across miles of battlefield. The system became self-sustaining, a combination of mechanical precision, human ingenuity, and rigorous oversight. The Germans could see the pattern, yet its scale, speed, and effectiveness seemed incomprehensible. Fact documented intervals, impact, and damage, while folklore immortalized the sense of unstoppable, almost supernatural coordination. The interplay between fact and folklore reached its apex here. Engineers and gunners supply officers and observers, each small action contributing to a network of immense power. The battlefield itself bore witness to the effectiveness of an integrated system, and stories of heroism, improvisation, and relentless focus elevated it to legend. Soldiers later recalled the rhythm of the lines, the precision of salvo after salvo, and the almost living nature of the network. Each shell, each movement, each human action became part of a greater whole. As evening fell, the artillery system had achieved a level of efficiency and effectiveness that stunned all observers. 1 million shells had been fired, and yet the human and mechanical system remained resilient, precise, and adaptive. Fact layer confirmed numbers, trajectories, and outcomes. Folklore layer preserved the legend, the sense that human will, ingenuity, and coordination could turn chaos into orchestration and destruction into a controlled, relentless symphony. By the height of the campaign, the artillery barrage reached a scale that defied imagination. The ground trembled with every salvo, smoke and dust spiraling into the sky, masking the valley below in a haze of destruction. Batteries fired in perfect synchronization, shells tearing through earth and timber, smashing enemy fortifications and carving craters that stretched for miles. German commanders watched in disbelief, their maps littered with impact markers, their calculations proving inadequate against this relentless storm of fire. Every cannon crew worked with relentless precision. Loaders, gunners, and spotters moved in seamless rhythm, each motion timed to the beat of the coordinated network. Sparks leapt from breaches, shells screamed toward distant targets, and the ground shook under the weight of continuous bombardment. Diaries recount the physical toll, the heat, the vibration, the deafening roar, but also the exhilaration, the sense of purpose as each salvo achieved its calculated impact. Fact layer confirmed intervals, shell counts, and damage, yet folklore layer preserved the perception of near-supernatural coordination. The human ingenuity within the system reached its apex. When misfires occurred, crews improvised in seconds. When supply lines faltered, logistics officers rerouted ammunition with minimal delay. Rotations of soldiers ensured that the rhythm never faltered, even as fatigue set in. Eyewitness accounts describe movements so precise it seemed as if each shell, each cannon, and each human hand operated as one entity. The battlefield became both a stage and a mechanism orchestrated to devastating effect. German forces faced unprecedented pressure. Their positions crumbled under the ceaseless hail of shells. Defensive lines fragmented and morale faltered. Intercepted communications convey astonishment. The barrage never ceases. The earth itself quakes. 1 million shells, and yet they keep coming. Words that encapsulate both fear and awe. Commanders struggle to comprehend the scope and speed of the assault, the scale of human coordination, and the unrelenting precision of each strike. The battlefield itself became a theater of controlled chaos. Smoke obscured sight lines, craters scarred the terrain, and debris flew through the air. Yet the artillery network maintained flawless timing. Forward observers relayed corrections, batteries adjusted fire, and crews responded instantly. Small acts, correcting alignment, adjusting powder charges, signaling targets cumulatively created an unstoppable rhythm. Folklore layer magnified these deeds into legend, the perception that the guns themselves were guided by human hands, infused with near-miraculous efficiency. By midday, the cumulative effect was staggering. Forests were reduced to splintered trunks. Villages bore the marks of relentless bombardment, roads cratered and fortifications annihilated. The coordination, endurance, and precision required were unprecedented. Each shell represented a human and mechanical collaboration. Observation, calculation, adjustment, execution, repeated with unbroken rhythm across miles of battlefield. Fact layer verified numbers and trajectories. Folklore layer immortalized awe and disbelief. Even minor improvisations contributed to the climax. A misaligned cannon corrected mid-salvo preserved dozens of rounds. A temporary shortage of shells overcome by swift redistribution ensured continuity. The human element turned potential catastrophe into flawless execution. Diaries and oral histories preserve these moments, illustrating the ingenuity, courage, and teamwork behind the staggering statistics. As afternoon faded into evening, the relentless barrage reached its zenith. 1 million shells had been fired, the terrain reshaped the German lines, shattered. Yet the soldiers, engineers, and logisticians maintained focus, ensuring that precision and cadence never faltered. The human system, the mechanical system, and the battlefield environment merged into one coherent force. The reality of destruction intertwined with legend, creating a narrative that would endure far beyond Lorraine. By the close of the day, the battlefield bore the mark of human ingenuity harnessed to war machines. The sheer volume, precision, and coordination left both allies and enemies stunned. Fact layer captured every shell trajectory and damage assessment. Folklore layer preserved the human courage, improvisation, and almost supernatural rhythm. Together they narrated a climax of industrialized warfare, human endurance, and the relentless pursuit of strategic effect. The artillery had achieved what seemed impossible. The battlefield had been transformed, the enemy stunned, and history had been made. And yet for those operating the guns, each shell fired was a combination of duty, skill, and determination. The human heartbeat driving machinery in perfect harmony. The legend of 1 million shells was not just numbers, it was rhythm, precision, and humanity intertwined in devastating orchestration. As the echoes of the final shells faded across the valleys of Lorraine, the battlefield was transformed beyond recognition. Craters pocked the earth, forests were splintered into jagged remains, and roads once sturdy were now fractured veins cutting through the scarred landscape. German positions had been decimated, their defensive lines fractured, their morale shaken. Yet amid the ruin, the precision, scale, and coordination of the Allied artillery campaign became evident. 1 million shells had left a mark both tangible and psychological. Soldiers and officers alike paused to witness the aftermath. Diaries describe a surreal quiet, the lingering smoke drifting over the shattered terrain, punctuated only by the distant creak of damaged fortifications and the occasional detonation of unexploded ordnance. Fact layer documented the effectiveness: targets neutralized, infrastructure destroyed, and enemy capability reduced. But folklore layer preserved the human perception of awe, fear, and the seeming impossibility of such sustained firepower. Within the Allied ranks, the sense of achievement was profound. Gunners, loaders, and observers reflected on the scale of what they had accomplished. Letters home conveyed pride tinged with exhaustion, the human endurance required to maintain such relentless fire, the skill and ingenuity that had prevented mistakes, and the camaraderie forged under smoke and thunder. Each shell fired represented more than destruction. It embodied coordination, training, and sheer determination. German reports painted a picture of disbelief. Commanding officers struggled to reconcile the scale of bombardment with the forces they faced. Intercepted communications spoke of astonishment and horror. The ground shakes, forests vanish, the guns never cease. Words that captured both factual surprise and the psychological impact of relentless pressure. The million-shell campaign had achieved more than physical destruction. It had shattered expectations, eroded confidence, and reshaped the perception of Allied capability. The logistics supporting the campaign left their own impression. Ammunition depots, supply lines, and transport networks had operated flawlessly. Trucks, railcars, and human teams moved continuously to feed the batteries, ensuring uninterrupted fire. Diaries recount improvisation when unexpected delays arose. Crews rerouting shells, teams manually delivering ammunition under fire, maintaining the rhythm of destruction. Fact layer confirmed timeliness, quantities, and efficiency, while folklore layer captured near-miraculous improvisation and human ingenuity. The battlefield bore witness to human endurance. Gunners and support crews, exhausted yet resolute, maintained the relentless pace. Rotations, rest periods, and coordinated teamwork allowed the system to sustain output. Letters and interviews recount the combination of strained focus and pride that characterized each shift. Even amid fatigue, the human pulse driving the artillery network remained strong, a testament to discipline and commitment. Civilians, too, were affected. Villages near the bombardment zones observed the destruction with awe and fear. Smoke obscured the sun echoes of explosions, rattled windows, and the landscape was permanently altered. Folklore layer preserved the human perception of the campaign as something almost supernatural. The ground alive with thunder, the sky raining steel, and a system of war that seemed inexhaustible. As night fell, reflection set in. Fact layer tallied every shell fired, every impact recorded, every logistical movement catalogued. Yet folklore layer preserved the enduring human story, the courage, ingenuity, and resilience required to sustain the unbroken rhythm of fire. Observers noted the discipline, focus, and coordination that made the campaign both effective and legendary. The million-shell barrage had not only destroyed defenses, it had reshaped strategy, influenced morale, and defined the capabilities of modern artillery warfare. German units had been forced to retreat, reorganize, and reconsider their calculations. Allies gained the advantage not just through firepower, but through the demonstration of human and mechanical integration operating at unparalleled scale. In the final assessment, the aftermath was as much psychological as physical. The land was scarred, the enemy stunned, and the soldiers, engineers, and logisticians of the Allied forces had proven the capacity of human coordination and endurance. Fact recorded destruction efficiency and outcomes. Folklore preserved awe, legend, and the enduring narrative of skill, courage, and relentless precision. Together they immortalized a campaign that would be studied, remembered, and revered for decades. The echoes of Lorraine lingered not just in the forests and fields, but in the memory of those who witnessed, participated, and survived. 1 million shells had fired, yet the legacy of human ingenuity, collaboration, and endurance would reverberate far longer than the thunder of guns. The campaign had ended, but its story, its legend, and its lessons endured. The earth still trembled long after the last shell had fallen. Forests, splintered roads, cratered defenses, obliterated. 1 million shells had rained down, relentless and precise. The Germans could only stare in disbelief. Their calculations shattered, their lines broken. Behind the guns, soldiers wiped soot from their faces, hearts pounding, hands trembling, yet aware of the monumental force they had unleashed. Each shell, a testament to human skill, endurance, and unyielding coordination. Fact recorded the numbers, folklore captured the awe, and together they created a legend that would echo through history. Lorraine was forever changed. And so too was the perception of what human determination, discipline, and ingenuity could achieve. 1 million shells fired, a battlefield transformed, a legacy immortalized. The story ended, but the thunder of its memory would never fade.